Bitcoiner. Good morning, Bitcoiners. I'll wait for a few of you guys to stroll in here. I got a sun issue today. Maybe I'll put that there. Yeah, that's better. Closed the. Get these beautiful old. This house, this is a very old place. George Washington's actual house, for real, for real. Hard to believe. If it was America, this place would be. I don't think it would be open to the public anymore, but you can just rent it here. It's great. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Good morning, Enmity. Good morning, Bitcoin Graffiti. B for victory. Hope you guys are all. Whoops, that's not it. Coffee indeed. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Let me get my file up. Things loaded properly today. We should be good. We shouldn't have as much trouble as we did yesterday. Don't know where and why all that trouble happened, but and weirdly, the album that I created yesterday still hasn't appeared. Absolutely no other um, absolutely no other album. Today's album uploaded properly. All the other albums are there. Yesterday's album just lost in space. Who knows? Bitcoin Graffiti asked Dolly 2 for the image today. No, Midjourney. I've been using Midjourney. I like Midjourney. Dolly 2 is it. The hallucinations are no good. Midjourney doesn't have as much hallucinations. It didn't give me what I wanted. I tried a million different prompts today. I wanted NPCs running away from but it didn't understand the Wojak face, and it didn't understand the NPC face, and it couldn't do them. So I just put journalists running away from Twitter and got what I got. And it's also just I got used to using Midjourney now. I'm trying to. Oh, here's an awesome thing I did the other day, guys. You should. This is a fun way of doing things. So I'm trying to turn. I'm getting a lot of images ready for the book. We're coming up on 1,000 here, guys. We're coming up at 1,000 subs. I did the Robert Breedlove show tomorrow. It should come out tomorrow, and I mentioned Satoshi Wedding Murders on the show. Mike on should be. Louis, it should be. I don't think I'm having any trouble. Let me know, guys, if I'm having audio troubles. Things look good. Where I'm sitting, it all looks good. Audio on. I'm getting a reading. Good morning, everyone. Is that using Discord? Yes, it is using Discord. Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, yeah, it must be you, Louis. My setup looks good today. So anyway, I did Breedlove's show yesterday. Sounds good in Chicago. Great, Tom. We love Chicago. You know what I just ordered, Tom? So in my childhood, I was a huge Chicago Cubs fan because they were the ultimate losers. So sometimes I was just attracted to them. If you guys didn't know, the Chicago Cubs hadn't won a World Series since 1908. And they finally did in 2016, the year of everything changing, if you remember that. That was just a crazy time. It all fit together. That was Tom Brady's big comeback win in the Super Bowl, just the start of 2017. And it was the first time really Bitcoin, started to get, not the first time, but it was the second big bear that was slain that year. So it was an interesting time. And then, of course, Trump won. So I remember sitting there in 2016 saying, geez, the matrix is broken. Everything's happening at once. Anyway, I was a huge Chicago Cubs fan for years. And I had the beautiful old woolen Cub hat. But the guys who make this shirt, Ebbets Field Flannels, I learned about this brand during the Chaz in Seattle. Remember when they took over part of the city and created an independent state? I was looking over it when it was happening in 2020, in the summer of 2020 on Google Maps. And I was like, what's this business? Ebbets Field Flannels. And I was a Brooklyn guy at the time. I liked the Brooklyn Dodgers, and the Montreal Royals were their farm team, and blah, blah, blah. So I was wondering, it like the Ebbets Field Flannels was like right in this independent Chaz country. So I was like, I wonder if they will actually deliver stuff to me. So I started ordering from them. They have Japanese baseball stuff. What they normally do is off-brand, not trademarked logos, like the BTC one that I wear here. The Toronto Baseball Club is a real thing, and they created all of the graphics, but they're not owned by any company anymore. So this company goes out and prints those things. But they got a deal recently to do Major League Baseball ones, a short limited issue, and I finally got the old Cubs hat back. Anyway, long story, long story. So, but we forgot something. We forgot something. I did acknowledge the sun being up simply because it was blinding my comments, but I didn't mention to you guys that Bitcoin's running. And I didn't say that all that's left for us to do is have a coffee and talk about what's new. So indeed, my the image today that you see is a mid-journey image. So here's what I've been doing, just to tie the loop on that before I got distracted by the Cubs story. So I get trying to get the images. Went on Breedlove's show yesterday. He should release it tomorrow, talking about getting subs for the book and when I'll release the book. So it might happen any day. So I've been collecting all these images and trying to make kind of a graphic novel, but not as many panels as you would put in a graphic novel. So, and it was tedious, and you can't really get the same images out of Midjourney every single time. They come up with different formulas. So what I did was I went and told ChatGPT to do it for me. I said, ChatGPT, you are an expert Midjourney prompt engineer. You will give me these images based on this summary, and I need this many images. And then, you just keep coaching it. You've made it too human readable. I want consistent output. You have to optimize for speaking to another AI. And it gave me everything I needed. It was great. So now I don't even have to do the prompts in Midjourney. I got ChatGPT to do the prompts for me, and it's coming out pretty good. I've got some pretty neat images. So there's a trick right there. If you guys are interested in doubling up on your AI, one can do the other, believe it or not. It's pretty cool. So, as you know, we like to start every one of these shows with the fakest news we had. Nuts, huh? It's pretty cool. Like, it came to me as an idea as I was struggling making all these different prompts, and they were coming out like it wasn't from the same style or anything. I just gave it its instructions. I told it, like, Hergé, Tintin, Mobius style. I just like that. If you're going to do graphic novels, it's simple and clean. And if you guys remember Tintin, if you were fans of Tintin, of course, in France and Japan, the comic stories are really high quality. They're printed in nice books, and so I'm a fan of those graphic novels and comics. So anyway, yeah, prompt engineering, indeed, as Bitcoin Graffiti mentions here, is a skill. I'm not quite there, and that's how I had the idea. I keep seeing these people making these really hyper specific prompts in Midjourney, like, the shadows, the colors, the aspect ratio, and I was like, how do people know how to do this? Like, I'm just giving it like simple instructions. Well, I'm not sure that's how they do it, but that's the kind of prompts I can generate now, asking ChatGPT. As long as you tell ChatGPT it is a Midjourney prompt engineer, it will become a Midjourney prompt engineer. So there you go. There you go. And by the way, guys, check out some of the Brian Rommel stuff. I'm still hot on his tail to be a speaker at Bitcoin 2023 in Miami. But he even just released a really detailed instruction manual yesterday. I retweeted it. It's in my Twitter feed. If you want to see how to unlock one of these AI and bring it into your own device and then train it yourself, right? Because that's where this is headed. You got to train them yourself. They're going to be like your pets or your children, or I can see a world already where people are going to start raising them like their own kids. And again, in Satoshi Wedding Murders, that is something that I predicted years ago, that they would be infantile, that they wouldn't be Data from Star Trek and speaking like a robot, and they can't. I've been watching the reboot, the last new Picard, and I rarely will recommend entertainment to you guys. Picard, the continuation of the Next Generation, if you were a Next Generation Star Trek fan, season 1 and season 2 unwatchable. Don't even go near it. I didn't watch it. I abandoned it immediately. Not interesting. But this new season 3, amazing. It's like really an actual return to the storyline of the Next Generation. And at the last episode last week, Data, I don't want to give too much away if you're going to watch it. Anyway, he started speaking without contractions. And it was like, he could say it's, there, don't. He wasn't able to do that in the old show from the 80s and 90s. Of course, it's not going to be any problem for AI to speak in contractions. That's what it does. And so in my story, I really specifically made them like children, not like robots that can't speak in contractions. They would prefer to speak in contractions, actually. Um, yeah, go for it, Louis. The instructions are pretty detailed. I have not done it yet. You need a singular device for it, and I simply don't have one here. I've got a lot of iPads, and I've got only the one desktop, but I've got a spare laptop back when I get back next week. I'll be leaving Barbados next week, by the way, guys, and I'll give you some updates. There'll be a few little programming changes. I've got a couple of bounce around things that I got to do, but it shouldn't affect us too much. There are two train trips early in the morning that might affect. But they're not next week, they're the week after. So, as you know, we like to start every morning off with the fakest news we can find, right? We got to find the fakest news out there. What's the fakest news we can find? Well, this one's pretty good. I've never heard of these guys. Tribal Official, right? Tribal Official. So what they're saying is reporters drop bombshell, reveal that Elon Musk's Twitter is now facing a whopping $30 billion fine in Germany, which is more than Twitter is currently worth, over Twitter's repeated systemic failures to comply with Germany's hate speech laws. While Elon Musk pals around with extremists in Twitter, over 600 cases regarding hate speech on Twitter are pending before German courts, and each case allows for fines of up to 50 million euros. I indeed, though, wonder what's going to happen, because Germany, such a smart place, so many smart people. They shut down all their nuclear reactors yesterday. Now they're all gone. There's none left. I wonder if they're going to be able to keep the lights on for these court proceedings. They got a lot, 600 cases. 600 cases. Wow. I don't know if someone saw Warren Buffett yesterday, but Warren Buffett was on CNBC, and Andrew Ross Sorkin asked him about Bitcoin. I've been interviewed by Andrew Ross Sorkin a few times. Sort of the same stuff from him each and every time, but he actually tried to press Warren Buffett a little bit yesterday on Bitcoin. He says, you've been saying this for 15 years now, Warren. It's back up to 30 and it's not going away and it's not dead. And Warren Buffett tried to explain what's going on, right? Warren Buffett's explanation of the psychology behind all of us liking Bitcoin is that we like to gamble, right? We like to gamble. The rest I couldn't understand. Joe Biden could have written it. It was all Joe Biden after that. It was a total Joe Biden redo. He started talking about your neighbors getting new cars, and that's why we like Bitcoin, because your neighbor might get a new car, and you might wonder if they got the new car from Bitcoin. That was one of his tangents that he went on. But Jason Williams, going parabolic, who we love, asked, we've been talking about AI on this show. He asked, can someone load this into ChatGPT and ask it what the fuck Warren Buffett said there? Pardon the swearing if you have children around. Please explain what he is talking about, because I am too retarded to understand. Very good. Very, very good, Jason Williams. We like that. So we're going to get to a few others. Oh, by the way, the community notes did come in. I just want to tie the loop on that note we were talking about the $30 billion fine in Germany. Maybe they can put it to a new nuclear reactor. We'll see. Community notes did jump in later and say, per the article linked in the reply, Twitter is not currently facing any fines in Germany. $30 billion is quoted in the articles as the maximum penalty for the 600 plus reported instances of alleged hate speech. So now imagine the scenario, right? They're talking about hate speech, and all in light of what's gone on with the BBC in the past few days and the Elon Musk BBC interview, and here saying that he's gonna get penalized for these 600 reported instances, when the BBC guy couldn't even name one, right? Couldn't even name one. So Germany, we'll see if they can keep the lights on, right? Here's what they say about that. Germany will shut down its 3 remaining nuclear power plants, betting that it can fulfill its green ambitions without atomic power, despite the energy crisis caused by the Ukraine war. Now, we got to ask ourselves, are the Germans the dumbest people that ever lived? We have to. We've got to, right? They're really good at the little stuff, right? They're really good. Right, you can't beat them on the little stuff. I love German grocery stores. I love German villages. My father's German. He's born in Germany, right? My family name, if you didn't notice, is German. I've traveled to Germany a bunch. I went to school. It's kind of nearby. I would go there every now and again. I was more on the Swiss border with France, but I've been there. Now, the little day-to-day things, they're amazing. But the big things, like not doing a Holocaust, right? They're not that good at it. They're really bad at it, right? Like not falling for Russian propaganda. They're really bad at it, right? Here's someone who is mentioning oil field rando, and I'll tell you what oil field rando is saying, right? Remember the Cold War when we tricked the Soviet Union into spending itself into oblivion on Star Wars stuff that we knew would never work? Well, that's what China and Americans on their payroll are doing with us in climate change and green technology. Now, Oilfield Rando says America, but I think the Germans fell for it worse. Right? I think the Germans fell for it worse. Now in we know in from where I went to school in France, they actually last year when the Ukraine war began figured out that Putin was funding most of the anti-nuclear propaganda in Europe in order to make sure they had no solutions and were indeed dependent on Russian gas. Now, it was just an argument. It could be as fake as any of the other arguments out there. I did not fact check all of it. It certainly fits into my narrative bias. So, of course, I just accepted it as true. I think it's true. I think it's true. It looks like it's true. I don't have the receipts. So don't trust a AI prompt engineer who hosts a Bitcoin morning show on exactly what happened with Russian funding of research, right? That's not my specialty. But it looks true. It looks true. It's what I would say fits the narrative, right? I don't have to hallucinate much to make that a reality. It sort of fits consistently with the facts at hand. But speaking of fake news and what's going on, right? Here's some interesting developments in the New York Times hit piece on Bitcoin mining from the day. So remember, the best part of it was Pierre Rochard's video, right? Because remember what we talked about yesterday, these kinds of jokes that Pierre Rochard played with the science, like, check it out, the science, we got weeds out here. These things are all, turning CO2 into oxygen and trying to take it seriously. But of course, we know, any Bitcoiner knew it was a joke, right? But it was an inside joke because NPCs just simply couldn't understand it was a joke. And you could see in the comments, people trying to correct him, people trying to say, oh, what? That's not science. You didn't get the science right, Pierre. You're an idiot. But the rest of us knew it was a joke. And that's how these jokes work best, right? If everybody knows it's a joke, it wouldn't have got, what's it at, 4 million views now, 5 million views or something that he's up to in that video. It wouldn't have got that kind of virality, right? It had that virality because a portion of people understood it was a joke. And the joke was other people didn't understand it was a joke. The joke is not Pierre walking around saying, oh, parts per million, doing fake science. The gag is not him performing. The gag is that people fall for it and are too stupid to know he's joking. That's the joke, right? The joke is the comments. The joke is the people taking it seriously. The joke is people getting angry about Pierre's inability to do science, right? That's the joke. So that's helpful in one sense, right? That's a real win for pranksters. It's a real win for just all of us to know how to engage with liars and cheaters and fake news purveyors, right? It's not to argue the facts. The minute you argue the facts, you're screwed. You're done. You've fallen for it, right? The right way is to do exactly what Pierre did, is to laugh at them, create a trap, create a funny instance. But it looks like there's going to be even more nails in the coffin as far as our own cognitive closure about what happened around this story, because it looks like, now this was just felt and rumored at the beginning, but it looks like the pictures they used, so they used this picture that showed haze, it was like a haze all around the Riot mining site in Texas. And so the haze, it turns out, the autistic Bitcoiners, right, the same people who would have chased Shia LaBeouf's flag into the prairies in Nebraska and found it under the contrails of airplanes passing by matching it against flight patterns and flight paths of the planes that day. That kind of weaponized autism has now been ported over into this fake New York Times picture, because it turns out that the veneer they put on of haze created by Bitcoin mining above the Bitcoin mine there was totally a filter and totally fake. So level 39 here says, evidence is mounting that New York Times graphics, allegedly manipulated photos and videos to make Bitcoin mining locales to appear polluted and smog filled. Watch as the same pinch color profiles appear on every single one of the videos. Just 1 second. We got extra rooms. The kids don't need to make noise in the room next to me, right? And if you go and find, people have already tracked down the photographer himself, and the photographer himself is starting to look like the BBC guy who had to run away from the Elon Musk interview, because you see the clear signs of cognitive dissonance, right? So what are the clear signs of cognitive dissonance in this case? Let me show you. So the minute he's pressed on this, he turns around and says, "You've never lived until you've heard Bitcoiners complain about blah, blah, blah." And so he says, "Folks, you haven't lived until you experience the nonsensical vitriol of Bitcoin Twitter being utterly incapable of hearing the slightest criticism of their industry," right? And Walker America says, "Yes, Jordan, this is the first time anyone, especially those in legacy media, have criticized Bitcoin. We've literally never heard negative things said about Bitcoin before. Not one single time." And so, of course, he can't face up to the fact that his image indeed it's just art. It's just art. It's not even a picture. It's art, right? They published art. And, you can forgive them, right? You can forgive them for not necessarily knowing the difference, right? These are the same folks. This is CNN yesterday talking about Hunter Biden again, right? We mentioned this yesterday, but still, no one even bothering to ask questions about this. Hunter Biden is selling art at $85,000 a piece in New York. And people are just like, "Oh, he's a great artist. No problem," right? No problem. It's not money laundering. What are you talking about, right? There's no money laundering going on there. So they have the time to manipulate pictures, put art into the news in order to persuade people, and then call something else art that is really money laundering, right? So you can start to see why people don't trust these folks. And indeed, we are now in an era where the media is trusted as, basically not. Here's a quote I have exactly on that. So this is from Paul Graham talking about what went on yesterday with NPR and BBC and what's happened now today with PBS. So Paul Graham says the underlying story, both here and with that BBC interview, is that there is now a whole generation who A, have little respect for journalists after being treated dishonestly by them, and B, no longer fear them now that they've lost their monopoly on the news. So amazingly, things are indeed changing, right? These stories compounded one after the other. I saw the numbers yesterday. Elon Musk live had about 3 million people in the spaces. The videos itself are now somewhere into the 15 to 20 million viewers, right? And if you look at CNN's primetime audience or any of these mainstream media other than Fox primetime audience, we're not even at 1 million live, right? He beat it live. He beat it in replay. He's beat it in every way. The mainstream media is effectively dead. What's going on here? Okay, we should be good. I had a little pause. So, Schellenberger, right? Michael Schellenberger, who we talk a lot about here, had a pretty good analysis on what's going on around this and censorship Karens and something we talk about a lot here, right? And he says, and it's two. I'm going to read Mike Solana's take on the BBC thing, and I'll read Michael Schellenberger's take. So, Michael Schellenberger, when you're dealing with psychologically unhealthy and unhappy people, which woke censorship Karens plainly are, it's a good rule of thumb to assume that their negativity is projection. They want to censor others because they are constantly censoring themselves for clout. They are filled with anxiety that someday somebody will accuse them of racism, sexism, transphobia, climate denialism, and so on, in the hunt for those, and so go on a hunt for those things in others. Which is why, again, right, I continue to say Bitcoiners will be hunted, right? They'll be hunted because Bitcoiners do, in the end, embody a lot of this stuff. Now, not the transphobia. I mean, I'm sure we'll get accused of it, even though I probably say every single time on this show we are very pro LGBTQ plus, right? But the climate denialism, as you can see, that's the point of a lot of this, right? So the hunt will be on. They consciously or unconsciously resent self-censorship and thus denounce those who express themselves honestly and openly. And remember, what I said is going to cause the hunting of Bitcoiners is simply by saying Bitcoin fixes this. That's enough. That is going to be enough of an expression to put a target on your back, right? Just saying the words, Bitcoin fixes this, is going to turn itself into saying you're a target. Unfortunately, right? We're going to get over it. We're going to get through this, but that's what's going on. The easiest way for a journalist, university professor, or corporate executive to project herself from the hateful woke mob is to be hateful herself, which results from the sick cult politics as a sick culture, sick PMC, and sick institutions, and pathocracy. Pathocracy, right? Elon did the right thing when confronted by a journalist catastrophizing woke narrative. He asked the man to be specific. When the man couldn't, Elon pointed this out. That's what good therapist does. All right. That's what we can do with ourselves. With I don't know what CBT is. Um, Greg is prone to depression, and this is cognitive behavioral therapy. Sorry, that's what it is. Right. Cognitive behavioral therapy. In cognitive behavioral therapy, you learn to recognize when your ruminations and automatic thinking patterns exemplify one or more of a dozen cognitive distortions, such as catastrophizing, black and white thinking, fortune telling, or emotional reasoning. Thinking in these ways causes depression, as well as being a symptom of depression. Breaking out of these painful distortions is a cure for depression. It's one of the things that I often, I start almost every interaction with people. And I never did this as part of cognitive behavioral therapy. I just did this as, that's what I say. When people ask me, how are you doing? I say, I love life. Like I literally love life, right? And I have for years, right? I love life. And Bitcoin makes that easier to do. And I'm enthusiastic. If people, so there was a time in like 2015 where I would go to the same, 2015, 2016, I was living in Toronto, and I would go to the same coffee shop every day. And we had a great time. It was all kinds of Bitcoiners, people who became Bitcoiners because I was there every day. And there was other people that go in and out. It's not like I was the only person talking about Bitcoin, but I was the only person talking about it every day, right? And I would get there when the coffee shop opened, and how you doing? I love life, right? And then, of course, you're in a city, so you get the beginnings of some woke people, and you get some people, stop saying that every day. So I came up with a new one. I'm enthusiastic about the future of humanity. So if someone tells me, or if I feel like I'm using the same expression every day, I love life, I'll just switch to my other one, which is even more positive. I'm enthusiastic about the future of humanity. That's usually my hello. My two hellos that I use every day are, or how you doing, right? Those are the two. That's what I use every day. I've been using them every day for more than 10 years now, enthusiastic about the future of humanity was created by myself in 2016, let's say. And I'll often, if I'm in a great mood, I'll combine them. How you doing? I love life and I'm enthusiastic about the future of humanity, right? So those are, that's cognitive behavioral therapy. If you say those things every day, you're going to believe it, right? It's going to become true. Schellenberger also came up with this idea around the projection side of all of this, and I want to read that to you because it's really important, right? Did I not bring that one with me? Or it might have been Mike Solana. Let me see. No, I might have forgot to bring over that. I want to read it to you guys just because I thought it was great. It's a great Schellenberger quote here. And it's about projection. We talk about projection a lot here, and the idea that folks will often criticize others for what they understand in themselves. And it's something that, at the beginning of the first time I heard it, the first person to really run with that was Tucker Carlson. He used to always say Democrats are always projecting, right? And I was like, I don't know, Tucker, right? This sounds like entertainment. But the more and more you look at it, the more and more you understand that might be what's going on, right? That people will project what is inside of them, according to what he's saying, even psychologically, the foundations of anxiety in our modern system. So here's what Schellenberger said. Let me see if I have this straight. The people crying disinformation are spreading it. The people crying hate speech are full of hate. The people demanding transparency are hiding something. And if you look at how this is played out about the BBC one, right? Here's what we see right away. The BBC yesterday publishes, where is the evidence of hate speech on Twitter? And they try to like go in and show you all these instances of hate speech and when it manifested, when it happened, and all these kinds of things. So absolutely crazy. Now, Mike Solana had a really great piece this morning on it, right? And he asking about, so him and a friend were analyzing the journalist for the BBC and what was going through his head, and doing a little mind reading, but I'm going to share it with you because it's great, right? This morning, a colleague asked, why wouldn't the reporter just lie? Cornered so hopelessly, why wouldn't he just say he was an awful slur? He saw an awful slur or something. But this is the beautiful thing about journalists, really. They genuinely believe they're the good guys, heroes even, on the side of truth. Goodness is in large part their identity, and their aspirations are pure. But because they see themselves as good, they naturally clock their subjects as in some way nefarious, right? Because you end up having to have um, the contrast, right? The reporter's goodness bias is so hardwired into his operating philosophy that he isn't even aware of it. James not only believed hate speech was rampant on Twitter more now than ever, he truly believed he himself had seen it. You'll recall stories of young people who, when reportedly told of invented traumatic events, develop personal memories of entirely fabricated stories. It's simple human error. Whatever. Our janky monkey brains are not the problem. The problem is because they see themselves as actual heroes, journalists are fundamentally incapable of humility. Emotionally, the belief that they are fundamentally good and their subjects bad also allows them a great deal of latitude in terms of the tactics they're willing to use to take apart a villain. When pressed on his belief, James broke. He had two options: admit one of his core assumptions was entirely fabricated and run the dangerous risk of provoking an identity reevaluation in himself, or assume he was still right. Somehow he had seen the hate speech, it did exist because it had to exist somewhere, and press forward. He pressed forward. And indeed, that's exactly what cognitive dissonance looks like, right? Cognitive dissonance happens because you don't want to reevaluate things. It's a type of laziness trigger, right? You say, everything I thought that was going to happen is not happening. Therefore, I have to create a whole new strategy and battle plan. It's like losing your homework. It's like losing a paper you wrote on for school or whatever, right? Or losing work you did because your computer screwed up and didn't save it. It's super annoying, right? You don't want to have to go through it. And so cognitive dissonance triggers and you just find the shortcut, right? I don't have to do it because of this. So it's a really big deal that this stuff has happened. Now, yesterday, if you noticed, you've got PBS that also left Twitter. So NPR has gone from Twitter. PBS has gone from Twitter. And some people out there are saying, well, that's just fewer NPCs now. And indeed, some people are saying, oh, we're worried that Twitter is just going to become a right-wing echo chamber. Well, if you want to persist with this arguing of facts and no one's listening to each other and no one is able to get along because everything's emotional spin and everything's a psychological operation, then maybe it's a problem that NPR is leaving. But if you think that there's an opportunity from here to actually build and move forward with people who have an idea to solve problems and not turn everything into a good and bad and this and that, right? But here's one of the funny jokes that someone published about this, that by leaving, right, by leaving the platforms, let me find out where I put it. Geez, I had it all perfect today, and now it doesn't seem to be. I thought I had it perfect. So let me get it. It was such a perfectly worded statement that I want to share it with you guys. And it was that, yeah, here it is. No, that's not it. That's Max Kaiser. Here it is. So NPR is leaving Twitter, PBS leaving Twitter, and Mark Bednar asks, but then how will the NPR alert us about their refusal to report on stories that are bad for Democrats, right? And he brought a tweet from 2020. NPR. Why haven't you seen any stories from NPR about the New York Post's Hunter Biden story? Read more about it in this week's newsletter. And here's the answer. We don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories. And we don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions. That's their actual answer from the managing editor of NPR. I mean, that's their actual answer. So when people say, oh, it can become an echo chamber and just right wing people, no good. Well, do we need this kind of unnecessary fighting over why someone censored it and then they just lie? No, we don't need it. We don't need, in the end, I mean it. The only people who are still tuned in to NPR and getting their information from it and trusting it are NPCs, right? The NPR audience are NPCs. The PBS audience are NPCs. That's a fact at this point. If that's where you're getting your information, if that's where your awareness of the world is being formed, you're an NPC. Sorry. Now, that doesn't mean there couldn't be a good program on NPR. I've been on NPR several times, right? When Quadriga was hacked, I covered the whole thing for NPR, right? I've been on, what's that podcast? Planet Money. I've been on Planet Money. Years ago, I was on Planet Money. Right? It's a great pod. It's fine, right? It's interesting stuff. A little boring and pedestrian, like they don't understand Bitcoin, so the whole thing is stupid, kind of. But nevertheless, it's not awful, right? Well, maybe it is. Who knows? But the point is, you get these stories that are so poorly covered by the mainstream media that their threat to leave actually just clears up the conversation. You're able to have the conversation without their crazy shit involved. Because again, look, is NPR talking about Hunter Biden's art? I mean, any idiot can tell you this is money laundering. Any idiot can tell you it's money laundering. That they don't know it, that the people at Planet Money don't know what money laundering in art looks like and are not willing to talk about it because Hunter Biden's involved is ridiculous, right? But it looks like, here's the big news that we're going to talk about besides NPR and PBS and what's going on there. And this is what's directly relevant for Bitcoiners, right? Directly relevant for Bitcoiners. It's this. So now we know that the mainstream media cannot be counted on to talk about things, right? And we know that America is sort of on its last options here with friends and framing the fight in Ukraine and framing the fight with Russia and what's going on with France now over in China. And they said France said they're not a vassal of America yesterday, right? They have their own options and all of this stuff. And you know what happened yesterday? You haven't heard it anywhere in the news. It's another one of these cases that you're just not hearing about, right? Here it is. The Chinese, and I know about it because it's happening in Canada. Remember yesterday we talked about Justin Trudeau's his father's foundation, the Pierre Trudeau Foundation. They were the ones who were supposed to look into the foreign influence of the Chinese government in Canadian politics. They found a bunch of actual examples of money crossing hands, reported by the left-wing newspapers too, reported sort of widely in Canada. Trudeau refuses to speak about it. The board members of his father's foundation have now left because the money was sent, and that's proven. So they're running off the sinking ship. Justin still won't talk about it. One of the reasons we know about it is because the Chinese party actually gave the bank records to the Canadian journalists, right? So it looks like China is moving and trying to, let's say, not even bother with the leverage it might have had on the Bidens until now. And here's what happened yesterday. The Chinese Communist Party just sent a very clear message to Biden by unilaterally releasing bank records from members of the Biden family from Chinese American Cathay Bank. If Biden won't play ball, more shoes will drop. And it looks like this is going to continue, right? It looks like it's going to continue. It looks like there's a few instances, the Washington Times reports, China sent not so subtle threat to Joe Biden by revealing Hunter's bank records, says Senator Ron Johnson. You're not hearing much about it, but it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. And whether or not it looks bad for the Bidens, who cares? It is another one of these instances that do we need these media entities like NPR who come on Twitter and just muddy the waters? Now that they say they're leaving and people are like, oh, it's maybe bad. It's not. It's excellent. It's excellent news. No one is going to download their stupid app. They can't beg people for money anymore, which is all they ever did when they went on these platforms. They now deny they're government funded. People have been bringing all these tweets over the last, whatever, 12 years of them begging for money every single day, right? That we live on public money, we need help, right? We government funded, but we need more, right? So, and when they will say, "Oh, it's 1% of our funding came from the government," well, if it's 1%, why not cut it to zero? Who's sustained on 1%? It's of course a lie, right? It was never 1%. But so you get these new investigations into just how much money laundering, right? This is possible now. We can actually open up the veil on how much money laundering actually takes place while we have these supposed regulations to stop money laundering. We're going to find out something that I knew before I got into Bitcoin, right? The thing that got me into Bitcoin was finding out that we had no such thing. There was no such thing as an anti-money laundering strategy, anti-terrorism financing strategy in the world. There was no such thing. Whatever they sold you as KYC, AML, right? KYC and anti-money laundering was not that. It was the whole plan is the $10,000 reporting requirement. That's it. Every transaction above $10,000 gets reported, and that's their plan. That's literally the whole thing. And how many prosecutions come from that? None. They don't prosecute anyone. It doesn't catch anyone. They say, "Oh, it's a deterrent. It's a deterrent." No, 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 no. They amass all kinds of data every single day on every large transaction and have no capacity to prosecute off of that information. The police have to do their jobs anyway. They tried to deputize the banks under the guise of security, and it didn't go anywhere. In the end, it's just about having a way to access where money is going so that you can understand a little better about tax evasion and things like that. It has nothing to do. It has literally nothing to do with stopping terrorism financing or money laundering. If it did, we would catch people. We would know who the money launderers are. Do you know how many people get caught for money laundering? It's not a lot, right? It's not a lot. Unfortunately, it's not a lot. Now we also get, so there's this Hunter Biden, what's going on with the art, what's going on with all the bank stuff, what's going on with China. I think you're going to get more information on other foreign banks. But indeed, the JP Morgan case, this is from CNN itself, right? I even went into fake news territory to get this story. And this is what they say. This is again from I guess it was never shut down. I guess it managed to go through the U.S. Virgin Islands case against J.P. Morgan and Epstein. And it turns out that this is from CNN. A new court filing alleges that J.P. Morgan Chase executives were aware of sex abuse and trafficking allegations against its then client Jeffrey Epstein several years before the financial institution cut ties. So I think with these two stories, right, we get the story around Biden, the art, the banks, the corruption. It can sort of draft right into the Epstein story. It's the same story. It's the same story. They're all connected, right? In the sense that it's a failure of the KYC AML system. It's a failure of bank deputization as law enforcement. They don't give a shit, right? They don't want that job, which we shouldn't cast them that job. I'm okay with that, right? I don't think there's any problem. Well, I don't want anyone involved in the kind of stuff JP Morgan was involved in. But I don't want to create a system that inherently is built to stop that and then doesn't stop it. Right? This is one of the most egregious cases, and it got nowhere on stopping. It not got nowhere. Right? We don't know what's blackmail. We don't know what's legitimate payment. All of this stuff is easy to hide. All of it is easy to hide. And so when you start putting these two stories together, you're going to see the failures of this system of control around money flows around the world. And you're going to have, again, way more attention on the failures of the US dollar system and what's wrong with it. You're going to have way more reasons to break up with that system. And I think that brings more attention onto Bitcoin again, right? It's another one of these things that helps Bitcoin, because this has been our argument from the beginning. Our argument from the beginning has been these things don't work. They're stupid. Let's not rebuild them in the new system. Let's build something totally new. Now, the amount of people that we can gather to that point of view is way more substantial now that we have the Hunter Biden money laundering, the Hunter Biden influence peddling, the CNN Epstein story with years of knowledge about their bank relationships. Those things combined mean the conversation will explode and become a big deal. Now, do we lament that NPR and PBS can't participate in these conversations that we're waiting to have, that people are thirsty to have? Of course not. They can leave with all of their stupid NPCs. They can go play in their app or whatever plans they have to get their information out. And I don't think we need to care. It doesn't matter, right? And anyway, we have our own Noster and other places where we can talk, and things are getting better on that level. But still, Twitter is the place where the real fights are happening. And just because some people have left the battlefield doesn't mean the fight is over in that battlefield, right? Just because they leave, there's way more things there that that can happen, and we can win. So there you go. Now let's see some of these comments and see what's up, team. Let's see. We got, did Berkshire buy? It's fake news that Bitcoin Magazine sold JPEG for up to. Is it fake news? We have an auction on the weekend. I don't think anyone sold 10 Bitcoins for a JPEG. I don't know. I don't know where do I sats. Don't know. I know I'm going to go see. They're doing a 1-of-1 sale of old covers on Discord, but it hasn't happened yet. So I don't know. Don't know. McTimmy, did Berkshire buy BTC? I don't know, man. It looks like they own MicroStrategy, so inadvertently. State version of Get Go Woke. Indeed. Good morning, Joe. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. I tried to fact check that report and didn't find any evidence. Oh, okay, it's on the Berkshire buying BTC. Well, look, they bought MicroStrategy, so Midjourney is not free anymore due to Heidemann. Yeah, it's honestly, I'm using it because I'm I have some commercial reasons to use it, and if you have those, it's probably worth it. But the throttling of your use of it, despite paying, is annoying. You don't get images generated super quickly, and once you have like 4 or 5, and I think I have the best plan, and it's still pretty staggered. So that kind of drives me crazy. I can only in one sitting, I can only really get to like 2 or 3 images, and then my patience sort of runs out, and I got to move on to other stuff. So, but now that I have Chat GPT doing my prompts for me, it might get faster. It indeed did yesterday when I was doing it, or 2 days ago and yesterday. Damn that signal! I wish I remember what I was saying. Nice, boo boo. Just watch later. Thanks. Okay, boo. Yeah, now I see. Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, then that's some signal right there. Yeah, there you go. Nice, boo boo. Yeah. Yeah, 2x. I think I speak pretty fast, right? I don't know if I speak Silicon Valley speed, but pretty fast. Bitcoin fixes this. Yeah, boo boo. That's what you got to say, man. That's what's going to put a target on your back. That's it. Weirdly, that's it. Say that, and you're gonna get a target. Thanks for sharing your greeting. Yeah, it's a good one, huh, Downtown? Thanks, man. I'm glad you like it. I love life, and I'm enthusiastic about the future of humanity. Christian asks, when are we going to get 100 people watching live? We got over 60 yesterday. We're over 50 now. We're almost there. I think by the time we get to the show, we'll be able to grow it in Miami, May 18th to 20th. Perhaps CK has recommended it many, many times. So he's one of the people most responsible for a few days where I got a lot of followers on YouTube. A lot of that was from CK. So thank you, CK. Cognitive dissonance is avoiding updating the model. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's the simplest way, Bitcoin Graffiti, of boiling it down. It's the like a breakup, right? A breakup is like cognitive dissonance at an acute, all-encompassing level, because that's one of the hard parts. It's about um, having to reshape the future you had already created in your mind with that person, and that's hard, right? So breakups are a good, the you can also just yourself, right? When you get that feeling of anger, sometimes it's because you're excited to tell someone the truth or whatever, but that feeling of like when maybe you see one of these trans images and it gets you, not, some people have that, right? Well, that's cognitive dissonance, right? Often, right? Often. Now there's instances where it's no good, of course, but in general that's part of it right there. That's not the way the world's supposed to work, right? I want it different. I'm going to use your greeting. I love life and enthusiasm. Great, man. Yeah. I learned so much. Thanks, man. Thanks, Downtown Music. Yeah, it's been a help to me. And I don't have to, it's been so long. I barely remember when I started doing that. But a lot of people comment on it and sort of say, cool. So feel free to use it anytime. No one owns it. Daniel Kahneman is an interesting person to check out regarding cognitive psychology. Thanks, Boo Boo. I'll check that out. His writing contains real examples, citing studies using scientific method. Look him up on Wikipedia. I will. Boo Boo, can I ask you to put that in the? Sometimes this chat doesn't make it into the. I don't know why. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. But if you would mind commenting on that, I'll just write it down. Actually. Daniel Kahneman. Thank you, Boo Boo. I will check that out. If he's got some infographics, I would love that. I would draw them on the board sometime. AML KYC is the enemy's version of follow the money. It absolutely is. Yeah, it absolutely is. Have a great day. Okay, here. Yeah, this is answers on the Bitcoin. So it's a Dutch auction. So do you know how Dutch auctions work? You have a set price, and then it drops if it isn't reached. So you can wind up a Dutch auction immediately. It's the opposite of an English auction, right? An English auction is just keep bidding the price up, and wherever it gets is where you're set. A Dutch auction is backwards, right? You make the top price, and then it starts to come down. So if someone buys them all for 10 BTC right off the bat, 23 covers, it is indeed over, right? They set the price, but it'll come down each and every time. So I think people would be happy with 10, but are willing to take less. Source for Berkshire owning master. Someone on Twitter today. That's it. I don't have any proof at all. I don't know where I saw it, but as I was going through notes today, because I was looking up this morning the Warren Buffett Bitcoin thing. So I just typed in Warren Buffett Bitcoin. I can't remember who tweeted it, and I didn't put it in my notes, but it sort of looked credible, but I did not fact check it at all. And they did not buy it. They could have been holding it since before Bitcoin, so who knows? But it fits. It doesn't, look, it fits into what Warren Buffett says all the time. He's not a stock picker. He picks good companies that he likes. And remember, just because MicroStrategy has Bitcoin on its balance sheet doesn't mean that's why you buy it, right? You buy it perhaps because their cash flow is great, right? They're a great cash flow business. And that cash flow, probably plays a dividend. I don't know. That's his big thing, right? He loves the dividends. So could be. But I don't know. So if I don't want to spread fake news here, so let me make sure you know that I don't know. I agree with you. I learn a lot. Appreciate it. Thanks, man. Good morning, America. Yeah, we're going. That's what we're going for, man. We're going for the Good Morning America. It would put the YouTube link on your tweet. You should get more viewers. More would subscribe. Yeah, good idea. I will do that, Bonsai. I've been putting the link before I start, and that's pushed us from 30 to 50, 60 in the morning. Can you post if you find it? Yeah, that's the. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'll post it on Twitter. And Master can take leverage to buy more BTC. Yeah, sounds like a way better option than buying GBTC these days. That's for sure. Berkshire doesn't own any Master according to his filings. Okay, so someone rolled me on Twitter. Yeah, take it back, guys. Don't want to spread any fake news. But maybe they've purchased it since last quarter. Yeah, it was probably fake news. Honestly, I was scrolling for. I wanted to see if anyone had actually got the transcript. That's what I was looking for, actually, the transcript of the gobbledygook that came out of his mouth, the cognitive dissonance that came out of Warren Buffett's mouth. That's what I was going for. So I was looking for someone exactly what going parabolic mentioned. Okay, yeah. So I did see it was within the same tweet that I found. Someone said they own this much Bank of America, and they own this much Master. They were sort of saying the stocks that have exposure to Bitcoin, and MicroStrategy was in that list. So that's what I was going on. Yeah, indirect. Yeah, it was always indirectly. Yeah. Oh, now I get it. Okay. There you go. Now I get it. BA owns Master. That's what's going on. Yeah. That's how it. That's actually not surprising that bigwigs would hide by owning a bank, owning the company which owns BTC. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Okay. I didn't know. Join late. Did you talk about Bitcoin Magazine selling NFTs? Yeah, a little bit. The sale this weekend, I think the Dutch auction will be Saturday. Old covers. So we'll see how that goes. I think it's fun. I mean, you know, it's not. I'm not a big collector of images, but look. Here's the way to frame all this stuff, right? And remember, the collecting, being a collector, seems to be one of the things. If you saw Giacomo Zucco's recent Bitcoin culture piece about the different cultures in Bitcoin, you should if you haven't seen it. Maybe I'll mention it sometimes here. Giacomo is usually good for content on what we do every morning here. So Giacomo put a thing together on just the different sort of parts of maxis and Bitcoiners and this and that. And one thing he noticed was that Bitcoiners have a tendency to have been hardcore collectors of things when they were young. I was. I've always been a hardcore collector of stuff. Right. I collect maps these days. I'm a map. Like a drawn map collector, and I love all the cities I've lived in. That's the theme of my collection. So I've got just some beautiful hand painted maps. Quebec City, gorgeous hand painted map of Quebec City. Nice one of Montreal. Beautiful ones of the Japanese maps that are these long landscape style, everything painted. I got Korean maps drawn by Japanese artists. Anyway, point is, I'm a map collector. But I've collected, all my life, cards and stuff like that. Yeah, rocks, crystals, um, um, all that kind of stuff. So here's the so that's a part of Bitcoiners, right? That's a part of it. But again, I was talking about, and I continue to defend this. I still think that one of the things Bitcoiners have to do, right, in order to change time preference and change the economy and change, the reality is the best and brightest go into the thing that makes you the most money, right? They do. And the best and brightest went into financial engineering for years. And still, many of the best and brightest are feeling like they should go there. I think Bitcoin has peeled a lot of these people out, right? But in order to change the world, Bitcoin has already changed Wall Street a lot, right? We're going to move on to change other industries too. We're going to move on to change energy next, right? That whole industry is about to change because of us, because of our industry. But the Wall Street thing, I continue to believe that when Bitcoiners will get moral about Ethereum, for example, right? they're missing some of the potential here, right? If we are indeed going to change what people do for a job, what people do with their time, part of it is blowing up Wall Street. And people accuse me of being an accelerationist. Well, here's an example of a Bitcoin accelerationist and I think a lot of maxis are accelerationists, but as an accelerationist, here's what I think. Ethereum is not a big enough scam. It's not even close. It's got to be a big enough scam to take all of Wall Street down. It's got to be a big enough scam to make the whole thing crumble. So now I know ordinals and all that is not the same thing, but the idea that we're going to continue to draw people in with their own greed and with their own ambitions is important, right? And again, look, yeah, most entertaining outcome for Wall Street is people just walk away. Yeah, yeah. Like if it becomes a joke, good. Right, good. Like that. That's kind of what we want, right? So I'm not worried about regulators and the SEC and is it a security and blah blah blah. Now I'm happy, very happy that and I don't think we make it anywhere without the maxis. Toxicity is absolutely important, right? But it doesn't mean it's the only thing, the only iron in the fire, right? We need other irons in the fire. Other things are happening. This is a chaotic transfer, and worrying about the style of how it all happens, I'm not there right now. Again, love the maxis, love them, need them. Would never trade a single maxi, never trade one maxi for anything, right? All of them, all the toxicity, max toxicity. But I don't want the other conversations going away either, which are inviting people into the fold with all of this stuff, right? So, and again, look, let's remember the signs of people and moving into Bitcoin have come in waves over the years. It started with the cryptographers, the political people were next, the Wall Street people were next, the artists were next. They were next, and somehow the artists have it's been since 2014 now, which is 9 years, right? 9 years they've been beating around this area, and now they got this thing, right? I lamented losing the creative and artist people to Ethereum and want them back in the fold. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it. Now, am I out there buying ordinals? No, I don't care. Like I collect other things. I'm not that interested, but I'm happy people are making a living doing it, right? So that's what I have to say about that. And then energy is next anyway, right? Energy is our big industry next. So once we destroy Wall Street, not even once we simultaneous to destroying Wall Street, we're going to take over another industry, and that'll be once we do that, it's Bitcoin standard time. All right, team. I'm at the end of my comments here. We get some folks. Yeah, Tone Vay's breakdown of GBTC. Yeah, he was talking about that a long time ago, and he was, pretty right from the start. As long as there's a discount on GBTC, entities won't buy into it. BlockFi bought into the fund and sold at premium. Yeah, this was their business model. Yeah, a lot of, I worked for Kraken at the time and had insight into what they were doing because of that. We were trying to come up with a collateralized loan system, and so I looked at everyone doing it. Right, I understood the law. Yeah, I did see the Twitter's ETR news. That's good. Yeah, cool. Yeah. So I looked into the law around how it was done. It's a very simple law. You don't need regulations to do it, so that made it appealing, right? The way you do these collateralized loans, and it meant there weren't regulatory hurdles to getting it to the finish line. So, what were the obstacles? And I had to figure out what the obstacles were for Kraken. And what I found out immediately, which became very obvious, Celsius, all these other guys, was where are they getting their cash? Because we knew what the cost of capital was at Kraken for an exchange, and we couldn't imagine they were getting a better deal than us. And so I understood Coinbase could do it because they had gone public and that created a cash flow. I said that's one legitimate way. We can only do it, I concluded, just based on the cost of capital, the competitive interest rates. It was clear how BlockFi was doing it. They were using the GBTC mechanism to fund the payouts, and I knew it was unsustainable, and that was like why we didn't copy the model, right? The only way we could have done it at Kraken, which we discovered through the work I was doing and the other strategists, was simple, right? Once we get the Fed discount window and we can get it right from the Fed, no one can beat us, and then we can release this product. But we knew it was a losing endeavor until then. So there you go. All right, team. I'll see you tomorrow. It's going to be a great day. It's going to be a great Friday. We're going to have a great time. Give me one last. They sold their Bitcoin in custody and then sold it and bought into. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as long as there was a premium, it worked. And they were scalping that premium to pay their users. Exactly. Yeah. All right, team. Peace.